You're listening to Storage Nerds Podcast, where we unravel the best-kept secret of the real estate investing world, the storage industry. Join the grassroots guru in self-storage, Stacy Rossetti, in insightful discussions about finding, funding, and running these spaces, allowing you to yield the highest returns possible. Get your foot in the door on self-storage and discover how to properly purchase facilities, negotiate with sellers, and close the deal without worries. Start unpacking that investment wisdom with Stacy right now.
So now I want to go over, I'm going to just go over kind of, just to give everybody an idea of how the storage industry, not the storage industry works, but how buying and owning a facility works. Okay, so this is really basic 101 stuff, and then we'll pick a topic and then we'll get into that. So the way that I teach is that there's 4 stages. Okay. It's this one right here is you are all, unless you own a storage facility right now, put into the chat if you own a storage facility and where it is, if you do. But if you don't, then you are in stage 1. Stage 1, your goal is to get a facility under contract. And I talk about this all the time. There's a whole bunch of steps that you have to go through in order to get a facility under contract. Okay. All right, that's stage 1. So I say most people that follow me and listen to me, this is the stage that you're in. This stage of all the stages is the hardest stage. All right, getting a facility under contract is the hardest stage of everything. And when I say hardest, I mean like most challenging, right? Because finding a facility to buy within your buy box and your parameters is like a lot of work. Okay, so we track internally what it takes in order to get a facility under contract. We track as we do this is that it takes, for a student, it takes anywhere from 30 to 40 offers to get one facility under contract. Okay, so just think about that. Like if you have 30 to 40 offers, how many owners do you have to talk to in order to do this, right? Or even go to Crexy Online or wholesalers or what it is. For us internally, it's 200 phone calls equal 1 offer. Okay? That's how much it's taking. Now, obviously, you always have some random, I called one person and it just got it under contract, right? And back in the day, I'm telling you, this did not happen. Like when I got started in storage in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, I could just call up, that wasn't 200, probably maybe 50. It was like 50 calls would equal 1 offer. Now it's 200. Okay, so what does that tell you about the market? Like there's a ridiculous amount of people that want to buy storage or want to, so obviously there's a lot of people that want to buy storage right now. And the truth of the matter is a lot of people really want to buy storage. Everybody, you all here, you're listening to me, you all want to buy a storage facility. But how many people are actually going to call 200 people in order to be able to put 1 offer in? Not a lot of people. I'm going to tell you, hardly anybody does this at all. A lot of people will call, right? So that's why all these owners are getting super frustrated because people are like, hey, would you be interested in getting an offer? I mean, we hear this all the time. It's like, I'm just tired of you guys calling all the time. And the truth of the matter is this right here, this is the key. All right, the key is actually putting the offer in. Why would you waste your time calling 200 people in order to find that one person that wants an offer? It just is just mind boggles me that people, a lot of people call. the rule for us is that you have to put an offer in. Okay. I just talked to somebody yesterday and, and it was like the owner wants like 1.2 million and our number came out to like 800,000. And I was like, put the offer in. It's just an offer. And every offer that you put in, it just makes you better at doing that. Okay. So, so just think about that. Now, 200 phone calls equal one offer. Now, this is actually, I just to make sure that y'all understand, this is cold calling, which is what I teach. Okay. And it was so funny because like I had a post, like I just saw a post from Nick Huber, and he had said that he put in over $200 million in offers last year for 2023, and he bought one facility and it was $1.2 million. Okay. This is the same stats that we have. Like we put in like we have like $100 million in offers out right now that are just offers, and we only have like I think maybe one or two or maybe three offers on like three under contract. Okay. So the stats, like to get this stage one done, to actually get a facility under contract is a lot of work. Okay. Now, everybody says like, so you have cold calling and then you have Crexy. All right. And we had Crexy come on last week. And we work very closely with Crexy, and I love Crexy. You have like all the online ways, or you have realtors and brokers and stuff. But the truth of the matter is we put an offer on every storage facility on Crexy. We put an offer on every facility under $3 million last year. Every facility, and we did not get one under contract. Okay. It was like 40 facilities or something that we put an offer on. And we didn't get one under contract at all. Okay. So, everybody thinks that like you do the easy way of going to Crexy and then just like looking and like, looking at the deals and stuff. But the truth of the matter is, it is just as hard on Crexy to find a deal as it is to cold call. Right. It's just as hard because it's just prices are so expensive, and there's a lot of competition there as well too. If there's a really good deal, I mean that will be gone in like a day. So if you're like not on top of it, if you do not know how to run deal analysis and put out offers, you are only shooting yourself in the foot. And the thing is with storage is that like it's getting harder and harder and harder. Every year it's getting harder. And in a downturn is when you get more and more and more offers, right? So you have to learn how to combat stage one. Stage one is what do I need to do? What do I need to learn in order to put offers out so that I will eventually be able to get a facility under contract? All right. That is what stage one is. All right. And that is what you're here for, obviously. But like sitting here for an hour, 45 minutes every week, it's going to take you like months to figure out how to do all that. Right. So I say speed it up, buy the course, buy the deal analyzer, and you'll be able to put offers out within like the next couple of weeks. Right. But okay, so 40 offers, 40 offers equals one under contract. 200 phone calls equal one offer. So if you have 200 phone calls equal one offer, how many phone calls equals 40 offers? Is that like 8,000, right? I'm horrible at math. I need a deal analyzer. So 8,000 calls to equal 40 offers. And then you actually get one under contract. Could you imagine? Right? It's a lot. It's a lot of work. All right. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you're not, if you don't have a strong stomach and you don't want to play the game, then there's no reason for you to be out there trying to find storage facilities. Back in the day, 5 years ago, I mean, from 2015 to 2020, it was a lot easier, but it's not easy. Okay. Okay, so that's under contract. All right, so then I see one person here. I'm blind. So wait, Lisa. Lisa has a storage facility in Kentucky, so she knows these stages very well. I'm guessing that Lisa is back into stage one. She already owns a storage facility, and she's like, all right, how can I buy another one? How can I actually beat this game and buy another one? All right, so that's like she's back in stage one right now. But so, to look for another facility. So stage two, you've got a facility under contract now. All right. You're like, yeah, all right, it's a good time. Having a facility under contract does not mean that you will actually buy the facility. In fact, one of my students had a facility under contract and had it owner financed, and she was all happy and stuff. And then she went out and she did her due diligence, and in the end, like, she ended up canceling that contract because of, like, a lot of work that needed to get done, and the numbers were a little bit off, and she just thought she was paying too much for the property. So, like, getting a facility under contract does not equal closing the contract. And in fact, like, I think we had, like, I can't remember how many deals we had under contract, but last year, but only half of them really closed. Okay, so that's kind of how this looks at 50% chance that you will actually close on the deal if you get it under contract. Okay, okay, all right. So stage two, right, is now you've got it under contract. Okay, so, like, now what do you do? Stage two is, first of all, you have to find funding, and you have to do what we call onboarding. And onboarding this is where you're like, so onboarding for us internally is the 90 days, the 60 to 90 days before you actually buy the storage facility. Right. So it's that time where you do have it under contract. You typically are closing within 60 to 90 days, unless it's an SBA loan or a bank loan. And sometimes it goes out to 120 or even 160 days. Yeah. Or whatever it is. Okay. So sometimes, because we've had deals that took us like 5 months to close. Okay. So when you do bank stuff, it takes a little bit longer. And so on the onboarding side, this is like you bought a storage, like, so you got a storage facility under contract. Now what? And it's like everything that you have to do in order to be ready for day one. In the chat right now, I want you to post out what if you, on day one of owning a storage facility, what are the things that you have to be prepared for? Just take your guesses and put it into the chat. Okay, so we can go through that. You have to think about this. We have what's called an onboarding checklist, and there's like 50 things on this checklist that you have to do to be able to be prepared for day one you own the storage facility. All right. And so that is the onboarding phase. And one of the biggest things is your software, right? So, like, you can't just be like, I'm going to start using this software here. And then you just, like, start taking tenants and stuff. No, like, the software company, it could take weeks and weeks and weeks for you to actually get onboarded into their software. Right? Thank you very much for answering, Leslie. Working on it. Okay, January Dillon. Good. Moving invoice to new accounts. Good. Setting up insurance and covering liabilities. All right, if you have any other ideas of what you're doing in the onboarding phase, put it into the chat, okay? So that everybody can see, because I can't list all that out. If you buy the deal analyzer, you get the onboarding checklist inside the deal analyzer, right? So Leslie, make sure that you notice that it's on. It's like, I think it's called checklist or something, but that's really your onboarding checklist is what it is. And the deal analyzer takes you through all the way through, like, the financing and then the onboarding part is really what it does. So it takes you through stages 1 and 2. Okay, but yeah, so onboarding, really the main thing is the software. Because inside, like, the way storage works right now is it's just your facilities are managed by a software. Like, if you don't have a software, then you have to do everything yourself. And who has time for that? Because you're going to have, like, 50 tenants to 100 tenants, 200 tenants. So you want to be able to manage that. I mean, every storage facility that we've bought, a lot of them do not have software, but it's really changing. A lot of them do now. But even if it doesn't have software, you're getting software, right? And so what you have to do is you have to get all these demos of all these different software. So when we started out, there was only 3 options, and now there's like, I don't know, 10 options. So you demo every single one of them. You just pick whichever one you can afford, which one's best for you. And then you have to onboard that and get it all ready. And that could take upwards of a month or 6 weeks. Just to do the demos takes a couple of weeks to go through them all. And then you have to pick one and do the onboarding, which takes at least a month to 6 weeks to do that. Okay. So it's just super time consuming, but it's like, one of the most important things that you can do. So the onboarding, okay, that's stage 2. And the funding part, right, is this is like, how am I going to buy this? Okay, so funding, and so you want to make sure that you have like your banks lined up, or if you're going to do a creative deal structure, that you guys are working on that as well. Okay. Or if you're going to syndicate it. Okay. If it's a big deal. So if you're somebody that's listening to me and you're like, I want to buy like a $2, $3, $4 million deal, then you could just syndicate that. Just as long as you have somebody on your team that knows what you're doing, right? If you've never bought a storage facility before, you don't want to be syndicating a deal. Okay. Unless you have like a strong team, like other people that are GPs on your team. But if you're going to buy something that's like less than $2 million, typically you're going to either go to a bank and get a loan, or you're going to do some sort of creative deal structure where like the owner's involved in the equity and stuff. Okay, so that is the funding part. And this right here, like trying to even get the funding and trying to figure out your funding structure, it takes forever to figure that out. I mean, you really have like that 60 to 90 days to figure out the structure. So let's just say that you find a facility that you want to buy for like $1.5 million. And you have to have like maybe at least $400,000 to put $500,000 to put down, because right now banks are requiring 30% down. Like, then that means that if you only have 200,000, you got to bring other people in to partner with you, and then you have to figure out that structure, and then you also have to create your like operating agreement. So there's a lot of steps in just getting the funding ready. If you're going to be buying $1 million property and you've got like $200,000 or $300,000 to put down, then you don't have to create the structure, but you still have to set the company up, and you have to get the bank to do all their stuff as well too, and that takes like forever, because just banks are just taking a long time right now. I mean, it's a downturn, and banks are being really conservative. So give yourself, if you are going to buy a facility and you know that you have to get bank funding, first of all, you should be talking to banks right now so that you know what their terms are, so you can run the numbers and put that into your deal analyzer. And then second, you have to make sure that if you're talking to a realtor, or if you're talking to the owners, they understand that it could take upwards to like 3 or 4 months just to close the deal. And you need to make sure that's in the contract. Okay, so this is like that you have to understand and be aware of, be ready to do, just by purchasing the facility. Okay, so onboarding and funding is stage 2. Okay, and then we have stage 3. All right, I wanted to see if this worked, but I don't know how to do it. No, it doesn't. Okay. I saw some trick where you could like push the words and it makes it into print, but like obviously I can't figure that out on this vibe. I feel like this vibe is kind of like property management software, like for any type of property management software, but especially for storage, like for storage investors. So like I noticed that like when you buy a storage facility and you get the property management software set up, the softwares nowadays, they have so many bells and whistles. And the truth is like 80% of all owners, they really only offer I mean they only use like maybe 20% of what the software offers. And and we try, like we're like, my husband's very, very good, and like they offer this, let's try it and see if it works, kind of a thing. and like so like auctions or like, whatever it is that you do. But the vibe is kind of like that for me. Like I feel like the vibe like offers so much, but I'm only ever using the whiteboard. So I paid like a lot of money for this thing. I love the whiteboard. Don't get me wrong. I love this thing very much. But like, I'm always trying to figure out like how can I actually utilize this thing that, make good presentations and teach real well and stuff, but it doesn't work out. I just like write is what I do. So okay, all right. So stage three is you bought a storage facility, now what? Right? That's what it is. You bought a storage facility, you bought one, now what? What? Okay. So the purpose of stage two is to get your software set up and then all the other stuff that you have to do, like insurance, whatever else everybody posted out. But then also the main thing is that you need to be able to take payments on day one. So stage two is all about how am I going to be able to take payments? Because a lot of times you end up closing at the end of the month, right? And then you got to be ready on like the first day, day one, because that's when everybody wants to make their payments. And so we try not to close right around the first. We try to close maybe before or after, like a week before, a week after, just to get us prepared for that. But if you close like a week before, you have to be ready to take payments. And like if the facility that you bought has a software, let's say they're using like ESS and you're going to be using storage, you have to set that all up and you have to make sure that everybody, like all these tenants, can get in and put their account information, their payment information, because that does not transfer over. Okay. Now, if you buy a facility that's already using storage and then you're using like you want to use storage, it's a little bit easier. But if you're buying something where they're using, one one software and you're using another, it's like a nightmare, honestly. And I just had a meeting with one of my students I'm partnering with, and they were using ESS and then they moved over to storage. And I was like, so how was that process? And she said it was a nightmare. It was just a nightmare. And so, like, that's why it's so important to do these demos of all these softwares and then think ahead and say, okay, what is my goal for storage? Like, am I going to just have this one little tiny storage facility and that's it? Or, like, do I plan on growing my portfolio and adding more storage? Or how do I want to automate this? Do I want everything to be as passive as possible? Or do I want to be hands on and be like, doing some stuff? And so you kind of like go through that in stage two, knowing that on day one you have to take payments, right? And then also you have to get everybody into the account. Okay, so like you need to be letting everybody know that you are the new owner, or you're the new owner, and we have a new system, and you need to call us, or you need to go online, and you set your new account up. Okay. And so, like, this process right here, this is not easy at all. This is like a lot of work. In fact, this is the bulk of your work when you buy a facility in the first like couple of months. Basically, what I just call this is just chasing tenants. Okay. And so you're just doing that like for the first like 60, 90 days. And you're just trying to get everybody in. And then after about 60 days, you're like, you know what? Let me just do an auction, man. I'm just like tired of this, right? And then you'll start doing the auction process right after that. And that kind of lights a fire under everybody's butt. And then all of a sudden you get this new wave of all these people who are like, oh, don't do auction. Okay, fine, I'll do it. I'll pay, or whatever. Right. So this is kind of the whole process. Okay. So within like 90 days of owning the facility, you do what's called transfer ownership. Transfer ownership includes getting everybody into your system, getting them to sign the contract. That's another thing. Yeah. So transfer ownership, right? Which is sign the contract. electronically inside their account, setting up their account, signing the contract, and getting all the payment information. And then chasing everybody and trying to get them all to do that. And then after a few months, you're like, you know what, screw this. Let me just do some auctions. And then you kind of do that again for like the next month or so it takes. It's because the auction process takes like, it can take 30 to 60 days depending on the timing of like how it all works and stuff. So, so that's basically the first, like, this is the first 6 months of you owning a facility on top of, trying to figure out who's going to answer the phones and then trying to figure out like your boots on the ground, like person. Are you going to be the person answering the phone? Or is your boots, are you going to hire like a company or get a virtual assistant or whatever it is? Are you going to be the boots on the ground person, or are you going to hire somebody to help you take care of them all? Okay. So that's kind of what this is. So boots on the ground and then call center maybe or whatever it is, phones. So that's like all of stage 3. Okay, that's all of stage 3. All right, so now you've owned this facility for a couple months. You're like, man, yeah, I'm kind of getting the hang of it. Typically around 6 months, of ownership. Then, people are like, you know what? I should start really looking for another deal. And I really should start getting out there. And that's kind of what I see for my students. I created the cycle based on just me seeing my students over the last like 3-4 years and what they're doing. Right. And so then you have stage 4. Right. And stage 4 is like, yeah, I kind of can breathe a little bit. And, I'm kind of getting the hang of this whole like software thing. I've got my systems, I've got my basic systems set up, and I'm just really kind of just treading water and like I'm just putting a whole bunch of fires out. Right. That's really what stage 3 is like you're just putting out fires. And then stage 4 is automations. Okay. This is where you start really thinking about how can I create my systems? How can I make this as passive as possible, right? So that I'm not having to go to the property more often, more and more and more. So that's really what this is. And so automations is like what I talked about, like utilizing your software to, not just taking in tenants and getting them to sign the contract and fill out the payment information, and then getting them their gate code. That's the basic, like every software can do that. Okay. Now it's like how the automations is like, how do I figure out my pricing? How do I look at my occupancy and how can I tell, if I need to raise prices or lower prices? Okay. So pricing is a huge part of stage 4. Pricing is the thing. And if you are not looking at your pricing every single month, then again, you're shooting yourself in the foot because right now, pricing is just like all over the place. There's, facilities doing promos, there's facilities doing, like website rates. Okay, so you have like promos, you have website pricing, you have your standard pricing, you have your phone pricing. Now, and then you have your like Google Ads pricing. So however you want to do it, your Google Ads or your marketing price, which a lot of times comes into your promos. So like if somebody calls you and they're like just a drive by, like you just like negotiate the price with them, right? Because you want to close that tenant. But if they come in through the website and they just reserve something and then move in, it's like completely contactless. That's another price. That's another way, right, of getting prices. So like, when I look at a storage facility's rent roll, and I see that they have the same prices like all the time, I know that owner does not understand revenue management and that owner does not understand dynamic pricing. Okay. And you want to be the owner that understands these two things. Okay, revenue management and dynamic pricing. Now, not all softwares can automate this. Okay, so a lot, I would say most softwares are manual on this, which sucks. And that's why no, they don't do the revenue management. Because you have to sit there and you have to look at your occupancy, look at the competition, and like you have to really kind of manually look to see what your prices should be. And then there are some softwares that will manage this for you. Okay. And that is probably the best way to go if you can afford that kind of a software. But if not, like if you're thinking in your mind right now, I'm going to go to a tertiary market and I'm going to buy a facility that's $500,000 and I'm going to put a sign, I'm just going to put my sign up and like, let's just see what happens. Then essentially, eventually I will be that person that buys, and in the next couple of years, I will be that person that buys the storage facility. Okay. So we've noticed from 2016 to 2020 or 2015 to 2020, when we start really getting into this business, you did not have to, it wasn't that big of a deal to understand these concepts. You just put a sign out, people would call, move in, and like if you were doing a little bit of advertising and marketing, you were fine. Well, I'm going to tell y'all right now, gone are those days. Okay. Now, like if you are not doing any online marketing, if you are not doing revenue management and dynamic pricing, if you are not looking at your pricing and looking at your occupancy on a monthly basis, then you will be crushed. Okay. Now remember, in storage, right? Everybody's here thinking that they can just go and invest in self-storage. I want to start investing in self-storage. And the thing is storage is great because you're buying a property, and that property, the appreciation goes up over time. Okay. And that's one of the best things about storage. But also you have to remember that storage is an asset-based niche. It's based off of how much income the property produces. So really, when you buy a storage facility, you are buying a property that should be producing income, and the value of that property is based off of how much income that property is producing. Okay. The value of the property is not on the land. The value of the property is not on the buildings. Yeah, it takes money to build those. It takes money to buy the land. But the truth of the matter is your value of your property is based off the income that it produces. Okay. So for instance, we're looking at a facility right now in Utah, and we talked to the owner yesterday about it, and it's on 10 acres of land, and it's 76 units. So obviously there's a ridiculous amount of space where we could build on and add and do whatever we wanted to do. And, but the thing is all that matters to me is how much money is that storage facility producing? And the owner's like, well, I got 10 acres, you can expand and stuff. And I'm like, what is the value of that property? What are you paying taxes on? And he's paying taxes on the value of that land was like 89,000, and the value of that building was like 176,000 or something. So it came out to like 250 grand or something, like 300 grand. And I was like, you're literally, you're paying taxes on land that's worth like 90 grand. There's no way that this property is worth more, more than $1 million. You want to 1.5. I was like, where are you getting the value? He's like, oh, the value's in the opportunity, the value's in the appreciation. You can add more land and you can add more units. And I'm like, it don't look like that. That is not how commercial real estate works. Okay. There's a little bit of opportunity. Yeah, obviously there is. You can build on, but it's not worth a lot of money to be able to do that. Because if I take that piece of that property to a bank, and I say, hey, I want to buy this property, the bank is going to say, well, can you afford the mortgage? What's the income? And that is really the definition of the asset-based lending. And so that's something that, everybody needs to understand. Okay. And the more money that you make, the value of the property goes up. Okay, so you are actually truly buying a business. And this business produces a cap rate, and the cap rate is what determines what the value of the property is, right? Based off of what the income is and what the market calls for. That's the value. Okay? All right. So you want to add, and you're in stage 4 right now. If you own a storage facility and you're watching me or listening to me, then if you own a storage facility, your job is to figure out how to keep your occupancy at 90% and make sure that it stays there. And what do you have to do in order to make sure that it stays there? And if you're full and you're like, at the highest amount that it could be what the market calls for, then, how can you make more money off of this property, right? So that you could increase that value. And that's really the basis of having all these different prices. I mean, if you just call us, you're going to get a different price from us than if you go online. If you see one of our Google ads, you're going to get a different, and you go in through that way, you're going to get a different price from us than if if you get a coupon emailed to you, right? So when you look at our rent roll, there's no way for you to just come up with a price for any one of our units. Our 10 by 10 unit, just based off of this alone, could be anywhere from $50 to, $250, depending on, what happens and where it comes from. Okay. And then also on top of that, that's called dynamic pricing. And, but so really this kind of blends into, what is your occupancy, okay? And what that means is that if I'm 80% full, what are these prices for these things right here? And if I'm 85% full, what are these prices for all the units? And if I'm 90% full, what are my prices? And then 95, right? And then if I only have one unit left, right? So that's why you see a lot of times only one unit left. That one unit price, I'm going to tell you, should be way higher than the price that's 80%. Should be way higher. Okay. And so if you can't manage this, and if you can't understand this concept, then essentially you're just shooting yourself in the foot, because you're missing out on income that you could get by just having your 10 by 10s at $50, no matter what the price. All right. So for instance, right now, we're leasing up a facility. It's a brand new facility. We just got it all fixed up, renovated, and now we're leasing it off. And it's 50% off the first 3 months. And that's for all of the unit sizes. And then we have another facility that's full, except for some reason, we have 10 by 30s that we cannot get leased up. So only that one unit, that 10 by 30, is 50% off the first 3 months, but all the other stuff is not. And the way that we market that is super important, right? The way that we market that, if it's Google ads or Sparefoot or all the hundreds of, we have I think we have 100 different ways we market. All the different ways that we market are all determined by not the entire facility, but unit by unit by unit. Okay. And so if you think about that, buying a storage facility and just putting a sign up and hoping for the best is only going to screw you over. And so what I've seen since 2020 till now, I've called every store. I haven't personally called. My team has called every storage facility, and we've called 35,000 storage facilities in this country. Okay. And and we've talked to owners, a ridiculous amount of owners. And we put offer after offer in, and from 2020 till now, there is an influx of everybody that wanted to get on the storage wagon. They wanted to buy a storage facility, and now they bought it in 2020, 21, or 22, and now they do not understand this. That is the issue. They are struggling with this, and because of that, they need to sell. But unfortunately, if you bought something from 2020 to 2022 and you did not get a banging price, you are losing money. And so I just talked to an owner yesterday, the owner in Utah, and this is what happened to him. He bought this facility in 2021 and he's like struggling. And on top of that, he bought it with an SBA loan, 10% down, right? So the funding is let's see, stage 3 or stage 2, whatever it is, but the funding right here, right? It was an SBA loan for 10% down and 3% interest. Right? That's awesome. All right. So he's like, yeah, let's buy it 3%. And now he's paying 13% interest. Okay, because it's a variable rate. And so when you have this issue right here, which is a lot of owners right now, and you have this issue here where you do not understand this concept, the stage 4 concept, right? Then you are going to lose. You're going to lose. Okay. So that is really the biggest part about the storage industry right now. Now there's already a huge influx of facilities coming on the market that were bought in the last couple of years, and they're really struggling right now. And so you want to be on the lookout for that. But the truth is I would say most of those properties, the numbers don't work. The numbers don't work. The numbers are going to work if you can do this. Okay. But they're not selling. I mean, you would not be selling a property. If you bought a storage facility in the last 2 years and you're selling it now, it's because you suck at managing the property. Okay. And you're not understanding this. So you need to educate yourself to understand these concepts. I'm telling you, that is how it is right now. It's business 101. It's not self-storage investing 101. Okay, that's gone. It's owning a storage business and being able to manage it properly. Okay? So those are the 4 stages that I just went through. Okay. This is it right here. All right, getting it under contract, which most of you are under contract, are in this stage. All right, and then stage 2 is I got a facility under contract. Now what? Onboarding and funding. Stage 3 is I bought a storage facility. Now what do I do? Right? And then stage 4 is, okay, now I own this facility. I need to make sure that Stacy doesn't buy my facility within the next 3 years. What do I do in order to be prepared? Okay, those are the 4 stages. Okay, all right. So that is the end of my session for today. I appreciate you guys all listening in, and I can have a couple of questions. I have a couple minutes for questions if anybody has anything. But that is a base. This is like self-storage 101 basics. Hopefully I'm not going to piss a lot of people off today by not giving you the basics. Any thoughts or anything before I hop off? Okay, and then don't forget that I definitely hope that you do this. You get the bill analyzer, you get the course, you join the Facebook group, and you come to the Wednesday training. This will help you to do this. If you're listening to me and you're like, all right, Stacy, she scared me, but I still want to do this, this is what you need right here. Okay? All right. The deal analyzer is separate from the training, right? Just so you know. Okay. The dynamic pricing is Lisa's asking about dynamic pricing. That we go over that in the course under management. And then we really honestly go over that really in depth in the management course that we have, and then also in the coaching program. So you can buy the management course, which is a little bit separate. But yeah, so, or you could do some one-on-one calls, or, we have what's called, Lisa, we have what's called the Facility Owner Mastermind. It's only for owners. So if you're an owner and you're listening to me and you want to be like more in depth, I highly recommend that you join the mastermind, because then it's only owners. And this is like all of what we talked about. It's the revenue management. So for instance, like yesterday, we talked about the phones, Lisa. So this is really important for you. Whoever answers your phones is going to make or break your company, right? And so how do you make sure the people that answer your phones are highly skilled people that can convert for you, right? Yeah, so you should check out, Lisa, you should check out the Facility Owner Mastermind, because like all that stage 4 stuff, that's all the Facility Owner Mastermind. But like we talked about yesterday, the phones, and like this is something that you really have to consider. Whoever answers the phone is either going to screw you over or is going to bring in like the money. And so we had, like, in our mastermind, we talked about this, and we had a guest speaker that talked about this as well too. So that's part of the mastermind. All right. Just who's Leslie? Good. Leslie's here as well too. Okay. All right. I appreciate it. You guys take care.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Storage Nerds. Hope this informative conversation inspired you to go out there and jump into this highly profitable business venture that people rarely talk about. Get more tips on storage space investing at www.stacyrossetti.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a rating. Together, let's build that thriving passive income one storage space at a time. Until next time.